hurt him in Michigan? And how many home states does Romney have? We have talked about a lot of home states for Romney. That's a very good point, Laurie. But on the auto bailouts, is he being hurt in Michigan by that?
The latest polls I've seen on that issue is that with the Republican primary voters, the likely voters, he actually has a slightly positive review from them on his stance on the auto bailout. But in the general election, forget about it. You can write that off. And I think, again, this is why the Republican establishment is petrified here, because you're looking at someone who is, to win this election, the Republicans are going to have to do extremely well in the Midwest. And you're just writing off Michigan, to start with, and that's obviously horrible. It may slightly help him here. I don't think it's a big, unfortunately for him, it's a very politically risky thing to say with a fairly minor political payoff and short-term political payoff.
Richard, what do you expect from the debate tonight? We've got the last debate before the Michigan and Arizona primaries tonight. What do you expect? Is this going to be purely Romney-Santorum going at each other and Romney trying to draw a direct contrast between Santorum's stance on social issues and his, or is he going to try to sort of co-opt some of those social issues almost and be a chameleon once again?
Well, I think the debate tonight is going to, besides minus Ron Paul in the debate, everybody else is going to be a race to the right. Everybody's going to be running as far right as they possibly can to try to entice folks on, the very conservative in Michigan and the very conservative in Arizona that they're the choice. On top of that, this is one of the few debates that we have before the Super Tuesday contest, which is happening on the 6th. So you're going to see them go all the way to the right. And the good news for Democrats here is when the Republicans go all the way to the right, they really do turn off a lot of independents and a lot of moderate Republicans. There's a lot of moderate Republican women who think that birth control is a good idea, or they think that they should have the right to have their birth control. There's a lot of moderate Republicans that don't believe that, we're being attacked by Satan. Or, I mean, the moral of the story here is that as the farther and farther they run to the right, and the longer this contest goes on, the farther they will run to the right, the better it bodes for the president and down ballot from the president. Because the president's...
Go on, Richard. Finish your thought.
The president's going to have a headwind, obviously, with his 50-plus approval rating. It's going to do well for him and those folks that are down ballot from the president. Those are senators, House of Representative members, which could give the Democrats a better chance to control the House of Representatives again. All
right, a couple more of our viewers writing in. Charles Reese says, Mitt is a social conservative, and I would like some specifics from the naysayers that say different. I think Bob is about to give us some of those specifics. And Robert Lejeune says, like I said, Mitt Romney seems to change his views according to what state he's running in. Mitt is a social conservative, says Charles Reese.
Well, I think most conservatives would have a hard time believing that the person who effectively invented the mandatory health care mandate when he was governor of Massachusetts and therefore provided the absolute template for Obamacare, I think most people would have a hard time looking at that infringement of personal liberties and saying the guy is a social conservative. I can't understand the logic of such an argument.
Richard, on the question of Michigan, which seems really tight right now, I think that NBC Marist poll was a 2-point spread. Romney at 37, Santorum at 35, obviously within the margin of error. There it is, in fact. Michigan voters' preference, 37 for Romney, Rick Santorum 35, the others not really mattering. How significant is it, Richard, that Michigan is an open primary? In other words, anybody can vote in it. Do you think a lot of Democrats will get out, as some have said they should? A lot of unions mobilize, get their voters out there and vote for Rick Santorum because he's an easier candidate to beat?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what's happening on the ground in Michigan, but the truth of the matter is that Michigan, it might be an open primary, but it's also a proportionally divided state. So for Mitt Romney to have a win next week in Michigan, he has to win plus 10 points. He has to win by 60% of the vote, or plus 10 of whatever Rick Santorum gets. And I find that very, very hard for Mitt Romney to pull off. And with that being the case, if Mitt Romney doesn't do that plus 10 points, he loses in Michigan because they get the same number of delegates. And so what it does is it shows folks that Mitt Romney can't win his home state. He can't mobilize. He can't mobilize members of the Tea Party. He can't mobilize those that are very conservative. He can only mobilize moderates and the old Republican guard, and that presents a lot of problems for Republicans as they work to build their base out for the GOP contest when they have to face the president.
Well, Bob, what do you make of these open primaries where anybody can go and vote?
It's ridiculous.
It does seem a little odd, doesn't it?
Fundamentally, it's a primary. It's not a general election, so, again, these are the kinds of political games that get played.
But Michigan, if the union voters were to mobilize and get out there, clearly they'd rather have Rick Santorum as a candidate against President Obama.
In Michigan, yes, probably, but because of the bailout thing that we just discussed, I think, frankly, either one of them is a pretty easy target in Michigan. So if I were the union, I wouldn't be spending my time and my bullets and my money on bothering to beat Mitt Romney in Michigan. I don't think it's Ohio's a different story, but I don't think really Michigan really matters. One thing I'd like to point out about this whole argument about Mitt Romney not exciting the base that I think, frankly, it is a really important aspect that people are not paying attention to, is that it has a huge impact on his money-raising operation. Mitt Romney spent $13 million, or a little over $12 million more in January than he took in. That's a humongous...
$12 million more than he took in?
Right. That's a record. That's a record. Okay. And he only has $7 million in the bank after that. So why is that? One of the reasons is that all of his money has come, nearly all, from very large donors. Almost none of it has come from grassroots. Very large donors, once you've hit them up, they're tapped out. You've hit your max, you're tapped out. Now, you can give to a super PAC, but you can't give to him again. The grassroots are typically, you hit them up for 25 or 30 or 50 or 100 bucks now, and then 100 bucks a month from now, and 100 bucks 2 months from now. So they're an annuity giver. So the people who can fire up the grassroots have kind of an annuity of money coming in, whereas Romney is taking, the big fruit early, but, he's going to deplete the tree. And so this is a very interesting thing to watch in this race, because obviously the only reason he's doing well in some of these states is he's just turning on the fire hose of negative ads. If he can't continue to do that, how is it going to work?
Which we've seen him do in other states. And Richard, if Rick Santorum were to pull off a victory in Michigan and even get close in Arizona, you can see a flood of money going towards Rick Santorum. And if Bob's talking about how quickly Mitt Romney is spending his money, we could suddenly get a much closer to level playing field in terms of finances, couldn't we?
Oh, we surely could, and that's a great thing for the Democrats. The longer these Republicans fight it out, the better it is for the president, and the better it is for those that are down ballot from the president. And I think that will also play into the president's narrative, and the Democratic narrative going into this which is, why is it that the Republicans aren't concerned? They don't want they don't want the government to be involved in the economy, but yet they want the government to be involved in people's personal lives. And Rick Santorum continues to play up that narrative about whether or not women should have birth control, whether or not the gays should, people who love each other should be able to get married. One of his supporters said that the best birth control is putting an aspirin between your knees. That's the type of rhetoric that these people believe and these people stand for, and that rhetoric will do well for the president going into the November election, because he can create a clear contrast between their hypocrisy and the president's message of trying to grow the economy, which where the focus should really be instead of social issues.
Bottom line, Bob, do you think Rick Santorum is another flame that burns brightly for a while and burns out, or has this one got some staying power?
I think it has some staying power. I don't think he will ultimately turn out to be the nominee, because I frankly simply think that the Republican establishment will do everything possible, including a contested nomination, to keep that from happening. I actually believe that if he is, there's going to be a real opportunity for a third-party candidate who's going to run in the middle. Yeah, I really do.
Interesting. Richard, how do you see it? Santorum has staying power?
I do think Senator Santorum does have some staying power. As we go into Super Tuesday, I think he does well in states with his populist message, so he'll do well in a state like Ohio, and then he'll get a lot of other big states he can do well there. He could obviously do well in his home state of Pennsylvania, and those will bode well for him going into the convention. But I think Bob is right. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, the GOP the GOP old guard, they're not going to have that. They're going to try to do everything possible to stop Rick Santorum from being the nominee because they know up against the president, he is going to lose. We're going to beat him steadily. We'll beat him handedly. I mean, the most recent Gallup poll has the president up like 15 on Rick Santorum.
All right, VSL writing in says, listening to these guys talk, you'd almost think they were talking about a game of Monopoly. Anyone else hear that? It is Monopoly-style money in our politics these days. All right, Richard Fowler, host of the Richard Fowler Show at 1480 AM DC. What time, Richard?
It's from 9 to 10 every Friday.
9 to 10 p.m.? p.m.?
Yes, p.m. every Friday.
Excellent. Very good time to be on. I'll listen with martinis in hand. Thanks very much, Richard. Great to see you. Have a good day, my friend.
Thanks for having me,
All right,
Jonathan.
Bob, you're going to stick around a little bit as we bring in Katie McFarland, our national security analyst, to look at the situation in Syria. First, Katie, we're talking